to start off now just to say thank you to you for agreeing to be our very first No Ordinary Man podcast. And I'm so excited to drill into your story, and because you're a person, talk about an extraordinary person who's lived an extraordinary life at such a young age. You've reached the top of the mountain, which I think it's a real interest to me when I was preparing, and like we've known each other within the town for a number of years, and you know, I see when I look at you, I see from the outside looking in is very much a successful family man, number one. Beautiful wife, beautiful child, beautiful family. I see a man who is committed wholeheartedly to his community, selflessly. I see somebody who in sport has achieved, again, the top of the mountain, who has achieved rank 30 out of 1,400 professional heavyweight boxers in the world. Extraordinary. And I see a man now stepping into a leadership role who, what I would term, and I take the terminology from your website, which is a mental health activist. And that takes great courage, it takes great conviction. And I think coming to a point now within your story, I think it's important that we tell that story, and I'm delighted that you're here today to share that with the No Ordinary Man podcast. If I may, I suppose thinking about your story, people tend to see all those things about you, and they tend to see in this fast sort of paced environment, which is, you know, success is sort of a clear line, but they don't see the sacrifices. They don't see the reality that it's ups and downs. And I know that in your own life, you've certainly sacrificed a huge amount. Your family sacrificed a huge amount for you to achieve those heights. But I think what would be really helpful, Niall, if we could start at the beginning, which is around your early childhood, your life, which I think sets your formative years, which sets the tone for what's to come. So
I'm really, really, really lucky. Both my parents are still alive. I'm born and raised in Gorey. I still live in Gorey. Very proud of being from Gorey. I've probably done more for Gorey than Board Falcha in the last 10 years. But born and raised in Willow Park. Come from a council estate. Mammy and Daddy would have both worked, but we wouldn't have been poor, but we wouldn't have been wealthy. I had a really good upbringing, really well looked after, but like I said, money wouldn't have been readily available, and any money that they had, we needed for the family circle, like for food and stuff like that. So everything was good. I have an older sister and an older brother, so I'm the baby, I'm the spoiled one. I like to tell them I was the only one that was planned. I was really lucky. My sister Sabrina, she's a great friend. I love her to bits. I love my brother to bits. We're a very close family from a distance, if that makes sense. Sure. We don't live in each other's pockets, but we're all in and around Gorey. I had any young fella growing up in a housing estate, in a council estate, especially in the 80s, early 90s, it was fun. You know, it was a lot easier times than now. There was no social media, there was no phones, there was no computers. Like I remember getting a computer off Santi. I think it was a Commodore or a Spectrum.
I remember those. Great crack.
So that was the first, and you'd be playing a game like Snake, I can't remember what it was, and you'd go to mass on the Sunday and you'd leave it on and he'd still be eating on your pint. So it was mad. But and I was very lucky. The estate I grew up in, whilst at the time when we were kids, we didn't really realise it because you're so proud of where you're from, but we would have been classed as the roughest estate in Gorey, Willow Park, but I'm unbelievably proud of it. Some of my best friends still are from there. My mum and dad still live there. I bought a house less than 500 metres away from there, you know what I mean? I always wanted to stay close to my roots, and I remember winning one of the titles in America and them having a big congratulations Niall on the fence in the estate, like, you know, stuff like that. So we grew up in a sport mad estate. I had good role models. I had bad role models if I chose to go down that way as well, but I was lucky. I started sport saved me from disaster in loads of other ways. Like, you know what I mean? There was easy routes. Everyone has a choice, and I was just lucky. The sport, I loved it. It kept my mind busy, and like I down to my sister's grad. I'll never forget. There's a picture at home, and I have my hand behind my back. And it's built up. There's a new housing estate beside Willow Park now, Shandera, but that used to be a field, Matty Walker's field. So at the other end of Matty Walker's field was the hurling pitch, and I had went over and played a match. Daddy had no idea I was gone. He thought I was upstairs getting ready for the pictures for my sister's grad, and I arrived back with a broken thumb from the hurling match, like, and trying to hide it like that with the hand behind the back. But no, it was look, it was no different than anyone else's. Really lucky, really good mother and father. Not perfect, but really good. Do you know what I mean? And loved us and done as much as they could for us. Like, you know, so I'm blessed. I was lucky, and they're all still here, thank God. So.
Well, I remember when I was at an event, and you're probably familiar with Lonergan, who was I think the governor they termed as the best performer of Mountjoy, and he was talking about how there was a very fine line between which side of the line, I suppose, law that you fall on, and it's not necessarily, I suppose, when you're growing up, in terms of your formative years. I think you talked about role models there. You talked about having a solid parental force in your life, but at that age, who was the sort of main driving force to put you on the track that you did become on? Like, was it just a collective?
No, well, look, I had great friends: Eugene O'Brien, Shannon Barr, Billy Malloy. My brother, like, there was loads of people, but there was a massive age gap. There was no one really my age.
Yeah.
So, so that meant I was knocking around with lads, Bubbles, Brainy, Owens, Brains, Baron, Gorey, one of my best friends. I was knocking around with lads that were 6-7 years older than me, and not that the boys, they all turned out great, they're all great people, but there was a lot of people in the estate that went down the wrong road, and are good people too, but just made bad decisions, and sport kept me away from that. My brother boxed, so he's 5 years older than me, and I followed him. Like anyone, you want to be like your big brother.
Yeah.
So I followed him down, and boxing took off straight away nearly. Hagler and Aiden in Gorey Boxing Club. I would say they're sort of like father figures. They were unbelievable to me. Bill Sheeran, God rest him, and his wife Anne Sheeran has just passed away this year. They're actually Ed Sheeran's grandparents.
Oh, really?
But, Bill was amazing to us as well. Like, they bought us the boxing club, and the boxing club would have steered me in the right way. It gave me something to be proud of, and it gave me something to drive to, because as a kid I was good. I used to fall at the last hurdle the whole time.
Right.
So that's a drive then. You kept going. And it probably made life easier outside of it, because people know you can box, you can handle yourself. They're not really giving you a hassle. So school was a free passage. It was grand, that way. So if I could thank, like, it's definitely not my decision. I'm a colossal fuck up of the highest order, but I had really good people that kept me in between my lines. My sister played a massive part. Hagler and Aiden played a massive part. When my depression hit its worst point, I had gave up boxing, and then my best friend killed himself.
Yeah.
Colin, that was a bad part. But then,
how old were you now?
I was only 19, but one of my other very best friends, Darren O'Toole, who was my best man at my wedding, not a day that he'll remember fondly, because he was extremely drunk. I don't know if he said a speech or if he dribbled or what happened, but he was amazing to me, and I had given up boxing at 16 because I was playing hurling, football, soccer, and I went off and I concentrated on them, and then my best friend passed or died by suicide, no point saying anything else, and that really hit me. That hit me like a truck. Still does. Even now, it's an uncomfortable, well, not an uncomfortable thing, but a hard thing to talk about. And Darren got me back in boxing, and it was like I picked up where I left off, which was strange. You know the way you'd usually be. And so within 7 fights, I was boxing internationally for Ireland as an adult senior male boxer. Like, so I had given it up for 6 years, and I came back and I was back flying again. So it gave me direction again, and I know with myself I have to have a purpose. I have to have something to drive to. An idle mind gets me in trouble. Do you know that was?
Yeah. But going back to the time when you started, you got involved in boxing, and that kind of structure and discipline really kept you on that track.
Yeah.
And then this huge tragedy occurred. Would you mind sharing about that, around the circumstances around that?
So,
and the reason why I'm asking is because we talked before about certain signals that perhaps looking back in hindsight you could see from that period, and that I know you took a lot of blame on yourself, which you tried to work through, and probably still are.
No, I'll always harbour blame, but it was 2003, so it's great. Look, we're talking about it now, and it's improving. It's not where we need it to be, but it's improving. But that conversation wasn't happening in 2003. So I suppose to give a basis of myself and Bull, Colin Bulger is my best friend's name. So I have a big tattoo like a cross on my back with Bull down the middle of it. That I'm not a bull, it's for him.
So you guys were attached at the hip.
Yeah, but like he had loads of friends, but he was close. Like we were very, very close, and so there was loads of things when we were in school. I'll give you a funny one. Like he done his leaving cert. He was a year older than me, and he done his leaving cert in 2001, and hadn't found a job straight after. Didn't want to go to college, so I said, do you know what, I'll repeat it and I'll be in your class. So he was in none of my classes when he repeated the 6th year. So the next thing he just started turning up to my classes. But, he wasn't even doing them subjects, so he was just there.
What a character.
But, he was brilliant. But the thing is, when you're good at sport, and like I said, I wasn't massively good, but I was his friend, so I was lucky. And we were on adult teams from a young age. So at 16 he was the main man for Galway Rangers first team. I was either a sub on it or getting games on it because I was his best friend, that way. But the problem when you're good at sport young is that you're in adult company very young. And I started bar work when I was 12, so I was very used to a pub setting. I'd worked in pubs all my teenage life, and what happened when we were good at sport, now when the men finished the match they went for a few pints, so we were brought along,
right?
Because I worked in the pub, there was no issue getting served in the pub. Colin was that year older, so he got served more or less anyway, and he was, like I said, the whole town thought someone rose in this chap, he was that good at soccer. So getting served was no issue, but the problem with it was that we started to drink very heavily very young. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I remember at 16 years of age going to a pub outside of Galway with a lot of us. We were on a bus, we'd won some football thing and our soccer tournament. We got a bus on that Saturday and we went up to a pub up the road in Hollyfort. I remember we counted the bottles that we drank that day. I had 16 large bottles of cider before we went to the nightclub. Do you know what I mean? If I done it, I get drunk now at the thoughts of it, right? But it was crazy. Like, we were able to drink far too much.
But that was the norm and the culture at the time.
There was a drink culture, but looking back at it, like, and my parents were amazing to me, right? But I didn't bring any trouble to their door. I was working, I had my own money, I wasn't costing them anything. And they knew I was going to come home safe because my friends were really good people, right? But looking back at it now, there was so many telltale signs that there was an issue, there was a problem. Like, I still have a few pints, but I'm conscious I have a really cross wife, I'm only joking, a brilliant wife, that she pulls the reins on me, and I need that. Like, I need structure, I need to be told where to be, what to do.
So she's an anchor.
Yeah, right, and she's brilliant. Niamh is amazing. She manages me brilliant, better than I can. Like, so I didn't have that. Colin didn't have that. Colin had some of his own stuff going on personally, and so I'll give you the lead up to the week. So he stayed in my house on the Sunday night, which wouldn't have been unusual. He would have stayed probably 2 nights of the week, and he would have stayed in somebody's house at least 4 nights of the week. He wouldn't have been home all week. Like, so the parents, it wouldn't have been a mad thing for him not to be home, for his parents, Shirley and Philip, who are amazing people as well. So he stayed in my house on the Sunday night, and I'll never forget. Now, again, we were extremely drunk, and I think, like, this is back in 2003. So I think we were sitting up, the chippers were closed, and I think we were sitting at my table in the kitchen eating a packet of cheese singles, like, you know, so it wasn't quality food, right? But he was down the dumps, and I peaked and trough, and it's only now that I know my illness, but I probably always had it. I had massive highs and massive lows, looking back at probably all my life. But anyway, back to camp. So we were there, we were eating cheese singles, and we were drinking, unfortunately, and he said to me, Baz, he says, I'm suicidal, I want to kill myself. And it wasn't unusual. He had said stuff like that before, but I knew there was something a little bit different about it. And I turned around to him, and it seemed, to listen to this now, you'd say how stupid, like, but I actually turned around and I said, don't be so fucking stupid, Colin. And I said something like, so what would I do without you, or something like that, right? But so my best friend had literally told me the most important thing in the world, which is your life, is you being here, right? And that he wanted to end it. And straight away, what does his best friend say to him? Don't be so fucking stupid. Do you know what I mean? So it's something that I'll always regret. Stayed in my house. We stayed in this same room that night. I slept in the bed. No, I slept on a sleeping bag on the floor, and he slept in my bed. And however it happened, I ended up in the bed and he ended up on the floor by the end of it. I don't know. So I obviously got thick, I was cold or something. But we woke up the Monday, went about our business. I was working in the Fowler at the time, so went back to the Fowler. A lot of what he had said the night before was about not having a job. So I was lucky. I always worked. I've always had jobs since I was 11, 12 years of age, and I had worked in the forestry, and I knew the lads in the forestry were looking for someone. So I made a phone call the Monday. Colin started in the forestry on the Tuesday. So he worked the Tuesday, Wednesday, and then on the Thursday, he was working, but he got rained off. So the lads in the forestry, they got paid. He probably got a sub of next week's wages or something, so he had a few pound. And what happened when you got rained off in the forestry, because I worked in it as well in the summers, is that you went on the beer, basically, right? So they were in the pub, they were in the Fowler that I was working in, and everything was grand, seemed all different, everything, nothing that you would think would end up the way it did, but he was there, so I was finishing work at 6:15, and my girlfriend at the time, a lovely girl, who I treated like a dog, she just was, she's a brilliant human, but I just wasn't in a place to be good back.
Sure.
She was coming home from college that day, and she got her bus arrived from Waterford into Gorey at 6:15, so it was perfect. But the weather was so bad, I didn't drive at the time, and I only live a kilometre from the main street, so I had to get a taxi to go home up to my man and dad's, and so we got a taxi. Colm had got me a DVD. I had no account in Movie Magic, which was the DVD shop in Gorey at the time. I had no account, so he had got me a DVD out of Movie Magic. And this turned out to be big because it was one of the last times that he was seen on camera in Gorey. Right. So that was grand. I went home, we watched the film, and at 10 o'clock that night, I'll never forget, Colm rang me, and again, nothing wrong. He just said to me, are you coming back down? Because I had said earlier that I would come back down and meet them. And I said, yeah, is it raining still? And I said, oh, Basil, he said, it's a horrendous night. He said, yeah. I said, all right. And he goes, look, you'll be stupid to come down. Why don't you stay at home? So we did. I stayed at home, and that was grand. I thought nothing more of it. The following day I worked again. This Friday night I worked, and I worked the Saturday morning, and then Saturday afternoon there was a load of lads over from Wales, real nice fellas that I'd met in the pub. Sure. And stuff. So they were going out to French's to have a few drinks, and they asked me would I go down at 6 o'clock. I said, yeah, no bother. So I went down to meet them, and I was having a pint, and Colm was supposed to go to a wedding on the Friday of another good friend's sister, and that chap came in to the pub and he says, Basil, have you seen Colm? And I said, actually no, we're not a different friend, but someone that was at the wedding. And I said, no, he was at such a person's sister's wedding yesterday, sure. I presume he's with them. And he said, no, he never went to the wedding. So that I straight away had a really bad feeling. The 2003 mobile phones weren't as readily available either, so I'm not sure if he had a phone or I had one, but I don't know. He mustn't have had one maybe. But I remember walking down the town. I was sort of lost. I left the pub as he said that, and I walked down. I remember walking past the AIB. It's Gino's Gelatos now in Gorey, and I met his father, Philip, a Stonewall gentleman, one of the nicest people you'd ever meet. And he just said to me, he said, Basil, have you seen Colm? And I said, no, Phil, I haven't. And he said, I'm really worried. And I burst out crying then, I'm nearly sure, if I can remember rightly. And I just said, so am I. So that was the 13th of November. It was the roughest night of the year. It was lashing rain, couldn't have rained any harder. And he walked from Gorey to Cortown in a t-shirt and went into the sea. God rest him, and died by suicide. So that absolutely hit me. Like you can see, it still hits me.
Well, thank you.
And the effect of that after absolutely buried me for a long time. This is something that happens when with grief, I suppose, but I convinced myself he wasn't dead. I remember going to Dublin, to Waterford. So we had loads of strange conversations, but we talked about sleeping rough and stuff like this. And I convinced myself that he wasn't dead, that he was homeless somewhere. So it was strange, weird time.
Well, I think it's the natural reaction when you're so close to somebody that, and in such the circumstance of how you lost your best friend. I don't think you probably ever get over that, but you try to learn to live with it over time. And talking about the legacy that he left in you that spurred you on to achieve the mountaintop.
I hope so, but
I think so.
Yeah, like there's loads of things, and it's probably Colin will be probably the reason I have went down my own journey, I suppose now. But look, that led to a massive amount of really bad years. Do you know what I mean? Which I'm sure we're going to talk about.
But I suppose, and I just want to thank you for sharing that, because that was tough. But I think it's important for people who are perhaps listening in and come across this podcast that that we don't shy away from those type of conversations, because I think what you've just shared would help an awful lot of people. So I'm grateful to you for that. I think can I talk a bit to you about you talked about your early life and growing up, and different sides of the line, and different types of people, and people that grew up with you that have gone on to achieve so many things. Do you think role models and the people who you surround yourself is an important part of success in life as such? And that might be the wrong way of putting it, but how important are role models? Because you spoke about the boxing club and your parents as well, and talk to me about role models, and especially kind of in those type of years that kind of steered you on track and kept you going, if that makes sense, when times got tough. Because I think that's a really important part of.
Yeah, I think every town has them. I'm lucky enough to be in Wicklow 14 years as well, working, and every town has really strong characters. And our town, Gorey, had really strong characters, and I was really lucky that probably from working in pubs as well, I got to know a lot of these people. But my role models were really good, like Michael Malloy Architecture. He was very good to me, especially after Colin, because he would have managed us. We won an under-18 youths title. I was captain, Colin was the best player. Michael sort of minded us for a long time after. I'd say he probably knew we weren't bang on, something was up. Then Bubbles was really good to me, Bubbles Breen, and I was really lucky with hurling and football. The likes of Mickey Shields, Nicky Stafford, Podge Dwyer. These people were good to me as well, and kind. I don't want to sound like I made some drastic mistakes. I wasn't. I would love to say I was nice to everybody. I wasn't. I done some things that I'm horrendously ashamed of when I was younger. The problem with boxing and being good at it was I found myself in a situation where I was probably, when you talk about role models, sometimes I'd find myself with the wrong crowd, and they would know that I'd be able to handle myself. So I found myself fighting grown men at 16 years of age, you know what I mean? So that was I've loads of regrets. I did not make mistakes. I made loads of them, but I was very lucky that.
But can I just say, that's to be human.
Yeah, but I was lucky as well that the main people that I attached myself to, like the likes of James Code, we all made mistakes. Neil Breen, we made mistakes, but we tried to learn from them. Do you know what I mean? And we didn't try to continue it. And I had always got this thing in my head where I never really wanted to bring trouble to Mammy and Daddy's door.
Sure.
And it was just my own thing. I never wanted that to happen. So I tried my best not to do that. That doesn't mean I didn't make mistakes. That doesn't mean I didn't make bad decisions. I did. But the likes of Podge Dwyer, the likes of Michael Malloy, Bubbles, these people made sure, Shane Dunbar, these people, they sort of made sure that I didn't top over, if that makes sense.
They looked out for you.
Yeah, well, looked out for me. not like drink played a massive part. Like back then, like young people now go to the gym. Do you know, all we could think about was going to the pub. Do you know what I mean? So, like, I think the first time I ever lifted a weight, I was 25. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So, culture has changed, and there was just a massive drink culture back then, and like even down to superstars like Billy Byrne for Wexford. I thought he was God, and I remembered he moved into Willow Park when the 196, like he was living up in number 40, and like I remember him asking me to go hurling, my first ever senior hurling match. They were playing a challenge game or a league game against Owler de Balloch over in the Garden City, which is across Matty Walker's field, right? And I couldn't believe it. My idol was asking me to go and play a hurling match. So, I was really lucky. There was loads of good people around.
Yeah.
There was loads of bad, but I was lucky the good seemed to attract me more than the bad. I still made bad mistakes. I still treated people badly, which I will forever regret, and I'll forever wish I hadn't.
Sure.
But there's no point in me harbouring that now. I can't change that, do you know what I mean? So the only thing I can try and do is to make sure that I don't continue that like that. I try and do good if I can do good.
You certainly are doing good now. I mean, I think we all look at our past and we think, Christ, why the hell did I do that or say that? Or, we all fall and stumble.
Yeah.
But it's how you get back up and move forward, I think.
Yeah. It is, but it's about the people that you attach yourself to.
Yeah.
And I'm conscious of saying that to the kids now in school talks, and I've a little bit in my own in MBK when I'm doing the workshops. I talk about mirroring.
Yeah.
So we have an awful habit of mirroring the people we surround ourselves with. Do you know what I mean? So that's why we need to be selfish. We need to be conscious of the people we're joining on to. Like I always say a really stupid thing to the kids in school, that if you put a trailer on the back of a car and the car's going down the hill, where's the trailer going? You get some strange answers to that question.
Sure you do.
I've heard the ditch, I've heard the roof, I've heard everything. But but the thing is, the trailer is going with the car, and that's the very same with the people you attach yourself to.
Yeah.
Like if you're attaching to bad, you're naturally going to do bad.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And the cognitive behaviour, like I sound smart now, I haven't a clue what any of this meant when I was growing up, but doing a little bit more work on myself and for MBK, and I've learned a little bit about the cognitive behavioural triangle, and who I learned from. Like I'm conscious that I had really good teachers in school. Although I wasn't good in school, I had Mr. Burke, who was a referee for me to get into the Guards. Like I'd say, he probably said in it that as thick as a ditch, but not a bad fella, like that way. And then I had a teacher, Miss Mulcahy, and like I said, like teenage alcoholics, but I would arrive, I got paid on the weekend. I finished work on the Sunday evening. If I was allowed to play the soccer match the Sunday, if we could get off work, I'd have played the soccer match. And I went out every Sunday. So I used to arrive into school on a Monday, absolutely banjoed, like, and I had this beautiful human being as a teacher for ag science, Miss Mulcahy, Grania. She hates me calling her Miss Mulcahy still, but and I'm just an amazing woman.
Yeah.
And she's taught me a little bit about the cognitive behavioural triangle, and she saw something in me that I didn't see at the time. Do you know what I mean? And fast forward to the end of that year when Colin passed away, I didn't see any of that. Vision became very blurry for a long time.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? And so there's the other steps then. My mother was obviously really worried about me. I had moved out of a home at 17 or 18, I can't remember, and me and a couple of friends had rented a house.
Right.
And then when Colin passed or died, I was really struggling, and I wasn't even struggling. I was struggling with being with other people in the house. So I moved back home. I think I was probably made move back home. I can't remember anymore. But unbeknownst to myself, then I was working away in the Fowler, and Mammy applied for the Guards for me. So I had no interest in joining the Guards, but Mammy applied for me. And next thing she says to me, you have an interview for the Guards on this day, and I said, all right, grand. So I remember saying, go shopping, like I don't need to go. And she said, I knew your man knew you'd say that, and she's made me promise she'd go. So I went, and I was 19 years of age, and I was 6'4". I was a good footballer, a good boxer. That's generally all they looked at. I'd say. I had nice references from a couple of teachers. Yeah, so I was lucky. I fluked myself into the Guards in 2005. Next thing I was in the Guards, I found out they had a Garda boxing team. Well, no, they found out that I boxed, and they approached me, and I'd never been outside of Ireland. No, I had, sorry, I tell a lie, I'd been to Turkey. And next thing the Guards come up to me and they say, will you come and box against the NYPD? I said, yeah, no problem. So I boxed down in Rochestown Park. Next thing, oh, geez, now you're brilliant. Will you come to New York? I said, of course I'd go to New York. I'm not even sure if I had a passport, but I got one. And went to New York, had an amazing time. I believe we saw the Empire State Building, and I have no recollection of any of it. So yeah, we had a great time when that happened. Like I said, I was really lucky. My friend had got me back boxing anyway, so now the Guards had got me boxing. I won a few fights, and I thought to myself, you know what, maybe I'll get back at this all the full time. Got back to it, and within 7 fights I'd won a national intermediate title, and now I'm boxing on the Irish Olympic squad, like, you know, that way. So
Did that all happen very quickly?
Yeah, that happened. The boxing happened very quickly.
Yeah.
Too quickly, probably.
Right.
Too quickly for... I had given up for such a gap, and I had only had about 7 adult fights, and now I'm at the very top of the scale. So that went, 2006, 7, 8.
So how old were you then?
22, 23, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that had went really quick, and then so it's funny. Well, it's not funny. It's really not funny. But in 2007, so I won the national intermediate title in December 2006, and 2007. I won a World Police and Fire Games boxing title in Adelaide in Australia. It's like the Olympics for firemen, prison officers, and guards, right? So I won that. Then I got picked to represent the Irish Garda soccer team. I was alright at soccer as well, so I went and I done that. I had just finished. The year previous, I had played under 21 football for Wexford. Midfield, and now everything was going on. In March of 2007 I bought my own house.
Wow.
On my own. At what, 2000, I was 23, 23, and the banks have a lot to answer for. Genuine, I got 100% mortgage, like, it's insane.
Different times,
yeah. So that was grand. I bought the house fully furnished. I took out a £20,000 furnishing loan to do up the house, but sure, the house is perfect. I paid my solicitor's fees, and I bought a Telio with cash for gold and Gory at the time. Do you remember when those were?
Yeah.
So that was all I spent out of the 20,000. And to the outside world, everything looked amazing. Right, I was playing soccer for the Irish Garda team. I was after winning the World Police and Fire Games medal. I was after representing Wexford the year before. I was driving an Audi. I was after buying my own home, and I had picked out a tree that I was going to hang myself off. In between where I bought and where Colin lived, there would have been two fields, sort of more or less in between. And it's ironic. Michael Malloy, a very good friend of mine, owned the second field, and he ended up building houses in it. But the tree I had picked was actually in that field, and all these loans, all these things, they made no difference to me. I drank and gambled the 18,500 in a month in 2007. And yeah, because I honestly did not ever see me ever repaying any bill or any loan or any mortgage. I didn't see that because my end was there. That was it. I was going to join Colin, and that was my plan. And to everyone outside, it looked amazing what was going on. And I'm just horrendously lucky that my sister spotted stuff. My doctor had spotted stuff, but my doctor was a family friend. We minded his kids growing up. So I think I said this to you before. Someone had said to me, "Don't sim yourself," or whatever it was, and I went to the doctor the year previous. I was in a bad place. I think my ex-girlfriend, and this probably destroyed me and my ex-girlfriend's relationship. Now lots, because I was really bad to her, but it was. I went to this doctor, and I didn't want to go to my doctor because he was a close friend. And I went to this doctor and I said to him, I'm struggling, and I talked about Colin and I talked about where I felt I was at that time. And I'd say, unless he'd no sense of smell, he could probably smell drink off me. And he said to me, sorry. And I'll never forget, he put 4 pints of water in front of me. I don't think he dealt with it at all well, so I'm not going to name the man or anything like that. But I will name the doctor that saved my life in a minute. But
sure.
Anyway, this man, he put 4 pints of water in front of me, and he said, no problem, I'll just drink away on them. So I was there and I was drinking away, and I got about halfway down on the first pint of water, and I pushed it and I said, sorry doctor, I can't drink any more of that. And I'd love to be dramatic now and say he hit the table to slap. He didn't do anything like that, but he goes, Niall, you're not suffering from depression. He says, you're an alcoholic. I was there. It knocked me completely for 6. And I was like, what? And he says, yeah, there's nothing wrong with you, and you're drinking way too much. You do. And honestly, that man, I lost a massive amount of the relation. I sort of put that on that ex-partner, which wasn't fair now looking back, but I did then, and so that lost that. And that man drove me into a massive hole. I left there thinking I was a piece of shit, basically. And
so you hit rock bottom?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if that was exactly rock bottom, but it definitely drove me in that direction. And then my sister, so fast forward till the next year, after all this success, I think she had started spotted things. I had been giving away PlayStations and stuff like that to my nephews, and I was saying it was because I was spending too much time watching them and stuff like that. And I think she was seeing massive highs and massive lows, and so she, being a sister, she would call over to the house one day. Excuse me, and I had made her a cup of tea or coffee, and she went up to wash up after, as you do when your sister, I suppose, being nosy, and she started looking in the presses and for a towel, I thought. Sure. And she found a clothesline underneath the sink. my kitchen is completely different now, so it's alright. But yeah, she found the clothesline, and she asked me what it was for. Being a 22 or 3-year-old smart arse, I said to her, hanging clothes on, I think it's fairly self-sufficient, like, you know, that's what it's for. But she have a brand new clothesline out the back. I said, no, I was thinking of changing it. And she just, straight away, she said to me, Niall, there's something wrong. And I probably cried out for it and didn't realise it, but she noticed it. And she got me to my doctor, Brian O'Doherty, who I wouldn't be here without. And I've no shame in saying that. I'd 1,000,000,000% be dead if it wasn't for this man. And I'm really grateful. But I got down to him, and he moved mountains. He got me an appointment with a psychiatrist the following day. But I remember when I got to him that day, he was that worried and that concerned at that day that he wanted to get an ambulance to bring me to St. John of God's. And I said, Brian, I can't do that. I was a guard. Do you know what I mean? I couldn't be seen to be the one that I thought. So my sister promised him, look, I'll stay with him and I'll make sure he's okay and I'll make sure he gets the appointment. And I got to the appointment the following day, and I'm really lucky. And I'd love to know the man's name. I'd love to write him a letter and thank him. I'm sure I could find it out, so I'm just being lazy, right? But I got to this psychiatrist in Waterford, and it just, like, what he asked me and how he went about everything, and like, so he basically asked me to rank things,
right?
So on a scale of 1 to 10, and he'd asked me how I'd feel if I won a fight or a match, and I said, Jesus, I'd be 10, 11, 12, like, I'd feel amazing. And he said, alright, and he said, and how would you feel when you'd lose? I said, I won't lie, I put a duvet over my head, I'd rather stay in bed. So minus figures, I said. Alright, and he said, relationships, how would you feel if there's a breakdown in a relationship? And like that, it was massive. I had been awful to that girl, so we were on, off, right? And I'd say, like, there were minus figures again. And he was there, right? And next thing, he more or less, I suppose it's the easiest way of describing bipolar. It's like I couldn't see the light at all, and it was like he opened the curtains. And he explained to me that with bipolar, there's bipolar type 1 and type 2. I think type 2 has mania, or type 1 has mania. I have the one that doesn't, thank God. Even though I'd like to blame that a lot of times, I don't. Right? But so he talked about it, and he more or less explained to me. He said that, like, when I win a match or a fight, things aren't an 11 or a 12. He said, like, right, things aren't that black or that white. And then when you break up with a girlfriend or you lose a match, things aren't that black. He said, like, you have to understand, between black and white there's a million shades of grey. But the problem was I couldn't see the grey. So it was like, honestly, the easiest way of describing it is like someone opening the curtains.
You mean in terms of, it was such a relief that this
It was a relief. I had a name for it. We had a route to try and fix it. I'm on medication same medication for the last 15 years. Had to fiddle around with it a bit at the start, but it's like a pair of runners. You buy some runners work for you, some don't. Exactly. You know what I mean? So
that was ground zero, really. And every day you've just been working through as best as you can. And that's the thing. Like, so I'm not sitting here saying you have any answers. I don't. But what I do know how to do now is to manage it better with the support of Niamh, who was amazing. Coming back to that unit around you and good people, and you know, so important.
And like, because regardless of how good or bad, everybody is going to have shit days.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Like,
Absolutely.
and that's really important. Like, I still have really bad days. There's days I forget to take my medication. There's days I forget to. Could be 2 or 3 days in a row, and I would notice nothing. Like, you know, it's just like taking a cod liver oil tablet every morning. Like, right, so I'd notice nothing. I'd know nothing. When Eve would notice it, she'd notice I'd be snappier, or she'd notice. So, like, she's really, really good, and I felt when me and meeting Eve saved my life, as she was just really good. But the first thing I done when the way when you sort of feel like this is going somewhere.
Yeah.
I told me, I said, listen, I have to tell you that although this is deadly, like you're in the honeymoon period, or if there is such a thing, right, or you're madly in love with each other, and I said to her, listen, this all seems amazing how things are deadly, but I need you to understand I'm bipolar. I said, I'm not always here. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I can come up and down and up and down.
Scary thing to do.
And it was frightening. And I remember she said to me after, she not backed away. Well, she never backed away, in fairness to her, but I think she spoke to her family about it, and she spoke to her friends about managing it, or should she put herself in that situation. But she weighed it up, and thank God she weighed it up in my direction. And yes.
It's extraordinary the hurdles or challenges that you faced, and you've with the people around you and the right people around you, you've kind of battled through and overcome. And you know, it's just a reminder that again, people sort of present themselves as this perfect picture, but actually there's so much going on behind that. And I think, you know, my learning, and you know, in terms of, as you said, certain things that you've done that you wish you hadn't, and the learning there is that never judge somebody because you have no idea what they're dealing with. But fast forward to NBK survival training, all that feeds into what you're doing now, and the children and the people that you're meeting along the way, and the positive effect that you're having. You can only do that because the journey you've been through.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people tend to, this idea of perfection is bullshit. But people think that they can't fall. They think it's failure. And it's only failure if you don't get back up.
Yeah.
And you're living proof of getting back up. And asking for help, bringing other people on board. Just for people listening in, you can't be afraid to ask for help, I think.
Yeah, it's a massive thing.
And then the boxing. So tell me more about that, and then the progression.
So the boxing probably came from a fall as well, I won't lie to you. Not a fall in mood as much as a fall, as a failure. The boxing probably came from a failure. So I've talked loads about loads of deadly people in my life. I had one person who I idolised. I just loved the man. He was the greatest crack of all time. My grandfather, Mick. I called my son after him. He was just hilarious. Like, he just loved spending time with him. And he drank in the pub I drank in, or worked in and drank in. So we bouncing off each other. Like, I used to call him Grumpy, and I won't say what he called me.
I'm sure he gave you just as much as you got.
He was brilliant. He was right crack, right? And my grandfather, unfortunately, my nanny died about 10 years previous to him, and we had sort of tried to look out for my grandfather a bit. He was living on his own in Corey, and he used to come up to our house every day, but he had got burgled twice in the interim since Nanny. Once, definitely. Once when Nanny was like months after. But the way it was, that was our base in Gorey. Like, that's Mammy's mother and father, and we, like, as kids, we would have everybody went to my Nanny's for lunch, right? Nice. So you go up and you'd have chicken bone soup, like, or whatever it'd be, right? So to think about it actually, but look, it was lovely.
Great memories.
Yeah, no, there were brilliant memories, and it was just off the main street on Clooneen and Gorey, and So my granddad was always fond of a pint, but he had started being very nervous in the house. So he started drinking a little bit more, right? And stuff like that. But I started to spend a massive amount of time with him because I was conscious of him being nervous. And then, I want to really fast forward, but he got very sick. He went into hospital, the family were called for, and he came back out of it. But my mum had minded us, had minded the Doherty's kids, had looked after my nanny and my granddad, and was burnt out. You know, she was just burnt out, and my mother said, listen, why don't we sell the house and put granddad into a home? He wasn't really able to manage himself at that stage. So the family decided not, and my grandfather went to live with an aunt and uncle in Finglas. They looked after him to the best of their brilliant. But this is a weird story about boxing, isn't it? But anyway, so I was on the way to high performance training. I was on the high performance unit in Dublin, so the Olympic trainers. So I was on the way to train him on a Thursday or Friday, I can't remember, and Friday. And I was driving up along, and I got a phone call from my mother. They had been up. My grandfather had taken ill, and he was in the Mater Hospital, and they were up in Dublin. And my ma rang me and she said, Niall, Granddad's not going to make it. Get over to the hospital. So I said, right, grand. So I rang the coach. I won't name him because he's I'm very popular at Wexford, man. So yeah, right. I rang this man and I said to him, listen, my grandfather is passing. I had just been at that man's father's funeral about 2 months previous. His father was a gentleman. But so I rang him and he said, well, listen, Basil, he said, that's awful, I'm really sorry, paid his respects. But he says, you're picked to go away to multinations on Monday, so I'll excuse you for the morning session, but I'll expect you here at the afternoon for sparring. So I was there, right? So I went over to make goodbyes and went sparring. As I was sparring, my grandfather passed away. I broke my hand sparring. I landed a punch wrong on the top of Joe Ward's head, this one.
Right.
And I remember going up to him after saying, I think I broke my hand. I think the words he used to me was, you're a doctor now as well.
Right.
So I walked out of there that day and I said, that's the last time I'll ever put gloves on you. But I had been sparring with Pascal Collin. So to finish out that my grandfather got buried that Monday. I lowered his coffin down into the grave with my bad hand. And when everyone came up to sympathise with me, I had to hold my good hand behind my back and shake. So my doctor, Brian O'Doherty, said to me, what's wrong with you? I said, I think I broke my hand. So he done up slip for me to go to the hospital.
Sure.
And I went to the hospital the following day and had surgery on it or whatever. So got it back right. But Neve knew, like, my grandfather passing away, it hit me like a bus as well. I loved the man. Just great crack. I suppose you can't really explain how he was just wild. He was a good crack. Like, he nearly got me sacked out of Fowler. he fell asleep in the toilet one night. We were rushing out to a nightclub and he comes out and sets off every alarm in the place, right? We were on the way into Courtown to the Beacon nightclub, and next thing the owner of the Fowler is ringing saying, what's going on? There's an alarm in there. There's someone in the pub. The guards rang the pub. My grandfather answered the phone to him and said, those fucking idiots are after locking me in the pub. And take your time though, I'm after pulling myself a whiskey there. Yeah. So he was sitting at the counter drinking when we got back in. Like, he was just
hilarious.
No, the man was a character. Yeah. But
I'd say you got countless stories like that along the way.
More. He's just crazy, man. Right, but he's brilliant. And so yeah, we went to Prague. And I was over there, and I had been training with Pascal Collins a little bit in the lead up to the elites and in the lead up to hurt my hand. And we got on real well. You know the way you get a connection with someone fairly early. And we had got on real well and good talking between us. And he sat down. He always seemed interested. And so I said to Niamh in Prague, I said, look, I'm either packing in boxing or I'm going pro. The only person I'm going pro with is Pascal Collins.
Sure.
If he doesn't want me, I'm packing it in.
Yeah.
I go back playing Gaelic football and hurling. So I sent Pascal a message that day, left my phone in the hotel, we went off looking at Prague or doing whatever you do, and me and Niamh came back then that evening and I looked at the phone and Pascal had sent me a lovely message back saying he'd love to take me on as a pro, he'd love to work with me, but didn't fill me with bullshit. He said, Niall, you're 30 years of age, and it's going to be hard to get a market for you at this age. He said, so you're not an Olympian. Let me see, there's no point in me filling you with shit. Let me see if I can get someone to take you on.
Did that surprise you with that response? Or was that something predictable?
No, it didn't surprise me because I was a good amateur, but I wasn't a great amateur. I had got to the top, but not won.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I had underachieved massively, and this was my big thing for going pro. I had underachieved massively as an amateur. I had only probably, for all my amateur fights, and I probably had 200. I'd say I probably only trained properly for 20.
Right, okay.
So my last 2-3 years of boxing, I really put it in. I could see the difference. I could see the level improving. So now me and Pascal, we were clicking, we were getting on real well, doing pads and stuff. So I said, right, I'll send it to him. His response, it didn't surprise me because I was 30. Do you know what I mean? I knew
so you
that.
had a realistic.
I was, and I in one sense, I was sort of waiting for the boxing button to be closed, like, you know, for that to finish, like, and go back hurling and football. So he said that to me, and then he sent me a message about 2 weeks after I got back, and he said, could you send me on some footage of your fights? I'm going to send them to a promoter in America. So he sent them to Ken Casey, who's the lead singer of the Dropkick Murphys.
Oh yeah.
So Ken was interested, so he said, yeah, I'll definitely have a look at him. We'll pay for his flights, get him over here, and we'll put him on a show. So I made my debut in Dublin on a show. So turning pro isn't as glamorous as people think. You have to sell tickets, you have to cover your opponent's costs. Do you know what I mean? Your first 4 or 5 fights are against journeymen. They're not coming to win, but they're not coming to get stopped. So it's very hard to look good in your first 4 or 5 fights.
Right.
So it's not glamorous, and it takes there's a massive output. But I always felt I felt good because I was confident in my own ability, and so got to America, boxed very well, and next thing is right, come back in a month's time for another fight.
Sure.
Box well again. So now I'd had 3 fights and things were looking alright. I had 3 fights, yeah. Then I had another fight back in Ireland.
What was the time frame in all of these? So when you took the decision, professional.
So I turned pro in May 2015.
Okay.
And I think I had 3 fights in the rest of 2015.
Right.
I had 3 fights in 2016.
Would that be in May intensive for somebody who's for half a year?
Yeah, it would, yeah. Massive, yeah.
And when can I ask again, I'm curious about the transition from amateur to professional. What paint a picture about that step up?
So the step there comes with my training now went from being once a day to twice a day.
Twice a day, okay.
I was working still full time.
Yeah.
So time management.
Yeah.
I probably not lost a lot of friends not that I fell out with anyone, But because I turned pro and I hadn't time to socialise, I hadn't time to go out,
Yeah.
you drift away from people.
Yeah.
Right? So I lost a lot that way, but I loved it. I loved the dream of it. I loved the fantasy of it, and everything was. I loved it. I loved every second of it.
You were clear on what you're doing and what you were going after.
Yeah, it was. And Pascal was. I loved Pascal. I love Pascal. Sorry, that was ignorant and we didn't follow. But I love Pascal because he'd tell you it straight. Like, there was no bullshit with him, and there was no lies with him. He set realistic targets from the start, and like, I had never won a massive title in Ireland. I won the intermediate title, which was amazing, and I'm delighted I won it. But I never won an elite title. Now, in my sixth fight, Pascal got me a Massachusetts state title fight against a lad by the name of Jesse Barbosa. Now, Jesse Barbosa was a decent fighter with a winning record, and was a big step up for me. But it was the first time I'd ever boxed someone that he was coming to win.
Yeah.
Completely, right? A lot of the journeyman would love to win, but this lad expected to win.
So journeymen, people on the circuit.
That do the rounds.
It's the fee.
Yeah.
That's their main driver.
Exactly, and they're the most important thing in boxing, because everybody needs to learn, and these teach you valuable lessons on the way up, right? So, but in this sixth fight, I was boxing this real opponent who really wanted to take my head off, and I again, not perfect, but I tried to be nice to everyone, right? So I was trying to be civil and all at the way, and then everything was grand, and because I'm not good with animosity, right? I'm not good with it, because all I know to do is fight or flight, right? So that's it. I'm limited with brain span. So he threw the head on me at the weigh-in, and honestly, I wanted to kill him. Like, I genuinely wanted to kill him. I couldn't believe that this had happened. Like, I'd done nothing.
It was a trigger for you.
Yeah, but bang, gone. Really, really bad. Like, so I boxed him an 8-round fight, my first time ever going 8 rounds, and I actually knocked him out in the 8th round.
Wow.
And when I say knocked him out, I knocked him clean out of the ring. I tried to take his head off his shoulders. Like, it was the most vicious I probably ever was. Well,
that was the first time that you experienced being like that. Not
even that. It was the first time I realised that this lad hates me, and you probably do have to hate the person you're fighting for that hour or that period. Yeah. But I never had that.
Yeah.
And I probably didn't have it that much after it either. But then the next fight. So that fight got me into the top 100 in the world, right? And
amazing.
Yeah, very quickly in my 6th fight. So next fight was my 7th fight against Alexis Santos, and Alexis Santos was ranked number 36 in the world. He was IBO international champion and New England state champion, and a couple of the other belts as well. I'm not sure what they were called, but
a serious contender.
Yeah, he was being eyed up. He was after being signed by Louis DeBella.
Right.
And he was being eyed up as Anthony Joshua's first opponent in America.
Wow.
Because Anthony Joshua was at the time the IBO world champion.
Right.
And he was the international champion, and they were trying to break America with Joshua, bring him over. So, but I had looked at this lad since I started going to Boston. This was the king sort of in Boston, so I had sort of been looking at him, and I always fancied that fight. Do you know what I mean? It was a fight that I didn't get massively nervous for. So that fight was on the 15th of September 2017. I was training full time for that, but I had a massive jump in August of that year. On the 8th of August, my little man arrived, right? Yeah. 12 weeks premature, he was in a hurry, right?
MJ.
Yeah. So, my MJ arrived, Michael James, and that changed everything, right? So now I had, he was 55 days in Hollow Street, right? So now I had, Hollow Street is an amazing place, right? There's loads of Filipino nurses there, and Manny Pacquiao is God, right? So they love boxing, right?
Yeah.
So they were all about it, and I was training. So I was working full time, training twice a day. One of those is a 65-mile drive to Blanchardstown to spar or to do my boxing. One is back down home, but before I come home, I go in and visit him in Hollow Street every day. Neve stayed up a lot, and it was extremely hard. Like, come here. I wanted to pull out if I said after MJ was born, I rang Pascal, I think I'm going to have to pull out. He said, Niall, this is a big opportunity. He said, think about it. And me and Neve sat down, and Neve said, please go ahead with the fight, because you're better when you have something to focus on. She said, you're better when you're busy. I never panicked about MJ, right? He was born, he was 2 pound, and he dropped down to 1.9 pounds.
Right.
He was tiny, but from the second, I never forget, like, they put him into a sandwich bag, literally, when he was born, like, and he didn't even fill the sandwich bag, right? I remember to keep his heat in. But I remember looking at him, thinking, he's perfect, everything is perfect, this is going to be perfect. I don't know, maybe I'm stupid or delusional, right? But I had no fear. And I have a massive faith, right? So maybe that was it as well. But so that was grand. And so Neve told me to stay at the fight. So I stayed at the fight, and like that.
What a lady.
Oh, well, she'd probably done it for her own sanity, I think. But
smart lady.
Yeah. So Pascal would say, and has said on loads of interviews and podcasts, etc., that was the best he ever seen me, because I hadn't time to worry about that fight.
Sure.
My head was too busy. Do you know what I mean? So went over into the fight, right? So the fight's at Foxwoods Casino. I couldn't believe it. Mickey Ward was walking out to the ring with me. Fucking, like, it was unreal, the people that I met. And Louis DeBella, I would class him as, we get on very well. Massive names in boxing, right? And we get to Foxwoods Casino in Connecticut, and here's my name on a big billboard, like Kennedy or Santos versus Kennedy. Now it was Santos first, right? So then the fight gets in, and I start, and like I said, I always felt I was better than this fella. First 4 rounds are cakewalk, really comfortable, really felt brilliant. And back at the end of the 4th round, and I'm there thinking, he's still coming on, plugging forward, doing the same thing. I've only had one 8-round fight. So I started to put a doubt in my head. So the 5th round he probably wins, 6th round he wins. Then the 7th round he has a really big round, right? Yeah. So he wins big, and I go back to the corner. And Pascal, for want of a better word, opens my hole, right? Hit me a unmerciful slap as well, right? And I'll never forget it. He goes to me, are you a gobshite? Your son is in hospital fighting for his life, and here you are winning a fight and throwing it away. And it was just like the rocket up the arse I needed. I went out in round 8, 9 and 10, and I won the 3 rounds, and I won the fight comfortably. But it was that dart to give me the belief, because you start thinking to yourself, I've never done 10 rounds, I've never done this, he had a really good round there, and I was starting to doubt everything. And he just put every focus back on MJ again.
He reminded you what's important.
Bang, there, and it was unreal. So, but now the problem was, I was top 30 in the world. Right, so I was in the top 30 in the world then, and in 2000, so that's 6 years ago. I'm 33 then at that point as well. I have slogged the body massively all my life. Now bits of the body are starting to break down. I'm breaking hands. I'm doing my knees.
Sure.
So that fight was 2017. I boxed again in December, and I boxed in February, I think, as well. And I won an IBA world title in February. And then I boxed, my next fight was August, and I boxed an Olympian by the name of Devin Vargas.
Right.
He captained the American team to the 2008 Olympics. Was that Athens, was it?
I'm not sure, but yeah.
It was the same Olympics as Andy Lee went in.
Right.
And so I boxed Devin Vargas, looked at him, thought again, good fighter, but I was going that way and he was going that way.
Okay.
Right, so I thought I didn't overlook him, but I thought I had the beating of him.
Sure.
And this was going to put me into the top 20 in the world. This was going to get me life-changing money in a fight or two. So I was training, everything was going perfect. I'd had a little bit of a change. My strength and conditioning coach, one of the best I've ever worked with, was Ivan Lynch, right?
Okay.
But he's a physiotherapist as well, so his workload had got uncontrollable. So I was fitting in, and my workload is hard with work and with training. So getting to each other was hard. So one of my best friends, Conor McDonald, the hurler for Wexford, he had opened 14 Fitness. So I asked him, would he do me a favour and help me for this camp? Conor did straight away. He didn't want money, and I said, no, listen, I have to pay you. I need you to believe that I'm a client. I need you to work with me.
Yeah.
So keeping everything professional, that was done. And the 42 had come down on. Look, he's a chap from Carlow, great lad, lovely fella. And he had come down to film a bit of the last training session. It was the Wednesday. And I flew to America the following Tuesday.
Right.
So I was down filming a few bits, and I had said to Conor, now this is gonna be on film. Don't do anything hard, don't do anything to make me look stupid. It's going to be easy. So I was doing some core exercise or something. Next thing my back started to tweak, right? So that was grand. So we were sitting up and we were doing an interview at the end of it, and I'm sitting on a chair with no back on it. And I have to get up in the middle of the interview and go, oh, I may change chair. So I had to get a chair with a back. My back was gone stiff. That was grand. So I started, and I recommend this for anyone that's serious about anything, right, is to start journaling, right? So I had kept training diaries. And so that was the Wednesday. I had ran that morning and I'd done the strength that afternoon. So that were my 2 sessions done. The Thursday was to do a run and to go boxing up in Dublin. I had wrote into my diary on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday forced rest day, right? Because my back was in bits. I remember it was August, it was lashing rain. I can't swim, so I had walked out into the sea up to my shoulders in Cortown in the lashing rain, people looking out at me saying, what is wrong with this man, right? But I was just trying to take the swelling off my back. My back was very bad, and hindsight, I should have pulled out of that fight. But what people don't understand is that I had paid about $3,000 into that camp. Between fuel, Conor Mac, up and down, shorts, whatever I was going to wear, I had invested a lot in. And if you don't fight, you get nothing back. Right? So I was looking, which is wrong, completely wrong. Biggest regret I have about boxing. Well, second biggest regret. And I ended up going over stupidly. We were in, if you ever hear of, we're down on South Shore and L Street Gym. Did you ever hear of it?
No.
It's in Boston, anyway. And we've tried to do pads. And the mad thing about it, I've done pads on the Monday and the Tuesday. But pads is someone standing in front of you. He's not moving, right? So I was managing that. So next thing I go into the sea, like I was doing in Cortown, trying to take the swelling off the back. And some lad shouts at Pascal, he said, what's your man doing? And I thought it was weird, there was nobody in the water. Pastor says, "Oh, he's just trying to take the swelling off his back." "That's full of sharks," he said. Like Boston, I didn't realise Boston is mental with sharks from Cape Cod and stuff like that. So, I got out there as quick as I could. But anyway, it's long and the short of it. I boxed that fight. I went 6 rounds, but I couldn't fight. My back was gone. I just couldn't do anything. Anytime he moved or lunged, I couldn't punch. I leaned on him to try and get close to him, but I just couldn't punch. My back was gone. So that didn't try. Believe it or not, I didn't get mad, depressed over that. I didn't go into a hole over that because I sort of understood why it happened.
Right. Yeah.
But that led to 4 back surgeries, 4 different back procedures, then my knees. So things started to break up slowly but surely. I came back after that. I had a win.
So how was your mental state through that period?
Hard, but like I say, I'm unbelievably lucky with my circle. Like Niamh is deadly. She's a fitness fanatic herself. Yeah. She manages that. Like she'd give out to me if I'm not training. Do you know that way? Like so, and MJ is here now. Do you know what I mean? So the world just seems way better. Yeah. Do you know that way? Like so, I'm not saying I don't have dark days anymore, but he just makes everything seem better. Like.
So it was a new focus at that time, and that's what kept you going. And
kept me going, and then so we 2 or 3 wins back on the bounce again, and we were training for a big fight in America, against an Italian by the name of Guido Vianello. He was top 10. This was a fight that I looked at and I thought this is going to be a fairly comfortable win. I really fancied it. And Dean Gardner, who were great friends, but we had boxed each other on the Irish team the whole time. He had bet me 3 times. Really good friend. We got on very well. But Dean had beaten this lad twice.
Okay.
I mean, Dean had always been split decisions and a couple of dodgy decisions, I think. But look, that's possible. But I knew if Dean could beat this lad, I could beat this lad.
Yeah.
So I was very confident about it. So we were training for that. The next thing we get a phone call, that fight's gone.
Okay.
Right? So now my head's gone up my arse, right? And I think I went on the beer for 2 or 3 days. And the next thing, Pascal rings me and he goes, all's not lost. I'm after getting a fight against Alan Babbage in England. And I said, right, I hadn't a clue who Alan Babbage was. And I said, all right, who's he? And he says, he's a really small heavyweight. I think you blow him out of the water. You're far bigger, far stronger, far better. Far more experienced. I said, right, grand. So we got back on the horse. We started training. We only got this fight with 3 weeks' notice, right? And this was in the height of COVID. So realistically, it's only 2 weeks because you don't spar the last week before a fight, right?
Sure.
And not only that, we had to travel over there because of COVID. We had to travel on the Wednesday. It was for an American TV, so the fight was being shown on the Sunday, right?
Right.
So we travelled over on the Wednesday. Wednesday was fine to me because my life is frantic, right? Which is good for me, but it's frantic. And the Wednesday was deadly because we get over there, took the COVID test, and you're sent to a room for 24 hours, right? Everything is great. I'm sitting there watching telly, no baby running around going mental, no wife telling me to clean up, no sergeant telling me to do this, right? It was relaxing. I sat on the bed, lay on the bed, happy out.
Yeah.
But then I woke up on Thursday morning and I realised I forgot my medication, my bipolar medication. So what people wouldn't know is that we were in Milton Keynes Stadium and there's a hotel built around it. So to set you the ground of what that week was like, we had the 3rd floor of that stadium, right? That hotel. We weren't allowed to leave the 3rd floor.
So that was your bubble.
So everyone was in the bubble on the 3rd floor, right? You had to book your breakfast, your lunch and your dinner. You had time slots. And then you had a time slot for training, right? So you had 4 hours of the day planned. Then you had the third floor to walk around, and everyone obviously in mass. That was it. So I had forgotten my medication. It was a big fight. It was on Matchroom. It was millions of people were going to see it. It was, now things started to go against me, right? And my head started to go against me. Things were starting to irritate me. Down to Pascal, the way he ate his food, the way he was drinking, the way he talked to people. And Pascal's a gent, one of the nicest people of all time. But these things were starting to frustrate me. There was only me and Pascal. There was no one else. You couldn't interact with anyone else. My seconds came on Saturday, but he had to isolate for the whole of Saturday.
Right.
So I only talked to him for a couple of hours before the fight on Sunday. We weren't physically allowed to leave the hotel, so no fresh air.
Yeah.
By the Sunday, my head was gone. I wasn't in a fit place to fight at all. I was in a really bad place. I was probably the lowest I'd been for a long time. I sent Neve a message before I went down to the arena. It was like a suicide note, for want of a better word. It was a horrible. I really wish I hadn't sent it. She was panicking then.
So you fell off that cliff very quick.
Very quick. Yeah, I went down massive. Like, obviously there's the pressure of the fight, which builds as well, but just
it was a perfect storm.
Yeah, it went bad, really bad, and it was being enclosed, not being able to go out, not being able to do fresh air. It was horrible. And I got down to the fight. Usually you would do 30 seconds on the pads and you'd be out of breath because you can't, you're nervous, like, right? I must have done 10 rounds of pads to try and warm up. I couldn't get warm, I couldn't get fit, I was freezing. And I didn't realise until I went to a sports psychologist when I came back, Alan Heary, a great man, and I was in the midst of a panic attack and I had no idea about it. I didn't know what the war, I'd never had one. And I'll never forget the walk down. So I'm going in to fight a lad who's on the other thing with Babbage, I didn't probably research him properly. He had 6 fights that year already.
Right.
So he was very active.
Yeah.
So I was his first big test, but I hadn't been active. I had been out of the ring through injury and stuff, right? Yeah. So it was, and I had trained for a completely different fighter. Vianello was a real long range puncher, whereas this lad's just like a bundle of energy, right? Alan Babish, a lovely fellow. We've ended up friends as a result of him beating the feck out of me, right? But so on the way, all I could think of when I got to the top of the runway to walk down to the ring is, please don't fall getting in through the ropes. That was my only fear. I swear to God, please don't fall. I just thought I was going to trip over the ropes. And it was like an outer body experience. I remember looking at myself walking to the ring. It was horrible. And I got into the ring then and I'm bouncing off ropes and I'm trying to get myself, or trying to look like I'm in the right place or right zone, but I'm not. And then I go out in the first round and I had a fairly good defence for a heavyweight, and I was, if you looked at the first round of that Babbage fight, my hands are dropped and I'm taking shots, right? People would be there thinking, what is he at? I was actually saying, because I had no fear of Alan Babbage's power, right? I said one of these shots has to wake me up. Yeah. I thought I was in a daze, so I didn't know what was going on.
So you sorry, just to be clear, you were letting yourself be
I was letting him hit
by
me.
A heavyweight.
Yeah, I know, it doesn't make sense, right? But I was letting him hit me because I didn't fear his power, and I thought one of them would
put you into gear.
Yeah, put me into gear and get me going.
I get that.
So that didn't happen. It was an awful performance. If you look on the MBK Survival Training website, and it's really important because for me, and one of the main images on my website is me lying on the broad of my back.
Yeah. For the
first time in a long time, I wanted the ground to swallow me at that moment, right? I was really bad, really down, really depressed, really bad for a long time after it, even though I got back to my medication and all. That really affected me, that fight, because it was my biggest opportunity.
Yeah.
And it was a really poor showing. not because of my own ability, but because of certain things that led to it, the ingredients towards it. Not making an excuse, Alan Babbage is a great fighter. But a proper me beats a proper Alan Babbage every day. Do you know what I mean? But I just didn't turn up. Get back then, and I'm really struggling for a while. But conscious habit is a good thing, and I get back into training. Eve is pushing me to do what's right for me, and I try and pull myself out of these things as best I can. And my go-to thing is training or fitness. Like, so that happened, and that was a big wallop to me now. But back to the image on the picture, I think you said at the start earlier, like, this world isn't rose tinted, like, it's not amazing, and I think it's so important to show, like, I had deadly times in the ring. That was one of the shittest times of my life, like, do you know what I mean? I never felt as bad in my whole life. I felt rotten. To make it worse, my nephew got attacked and bet up in Gory and was in hospital that night. So there was
everything was
it was just a horrible night. Right. I never forget it.
He was okay.
Yeah, Paul is fine. Thank God. He ended up last year getting soccer player of the year in Wexford. So he's doing all right. He's
rising star.
Right. Yeah. No, well, he's Rose. I think he's probably where he's going now. But so it was just an awful night.
But the quote stood out to me which on your website now, and that is, if you can look up.
Oh, that could have been Rob now, right? So,
doesn't matter.
It's a fact in life, and Muhammad Ali said that. Fall down 7, get up 8. Do you know what I mean? So if you can look up, you can get up, and it's the nicest thing. Well, it's not. Rock bottom's horrible. I can't glorify rock bottom, right?
Yeah.
But rock bottom, the most positive thing you can say about rock bottom is that's it. Yeah. Everything is up from here.
Yeah.
But it's just having the strength and the resilience to make sure that you're going to go in that direction. Yeah. And that's hard, and I know that's hard. After the Babbage fight, it was hard. After Colin, it wasn't achievable, I didn't think. But I'm still here, and I'm still getting through them. Like, and these are the things that, like, the amazing thing that we all have to clap ourselves on the back for is that we all have 100% record of getting through our shit days.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And the resilience that builds, because every one of us, you're dealing with stuff that I know nothing about. Shane's dealing with stuff that we know nothing about. Do you know what I mean? We're all going through different stuff.
Yeah.
But we're all here, and that's something to be proud of. Like.
And the thing is, though, with your story specifically now, is that a lot of people talk about doing things, and very few actually act upon those things. Yeah. And faced in adversity, going back to the why, or answering the question why the No Ordinary Man podcast, well, it's to highlight stories like yours that of someone who's faced that adversity and continue to get back up on the feet and keep moving forward. And I think you have an extraordinary story to tell, and I'm grateful to you for being here to tell that story. But if it's okay, I've got a couple of questions. So, listening to you in your journey, your mental resilience sort of got stronger or harder, whichever way you want to put it. It kind of, it's like a muscle. You work the muscle, and it kind of grows and stronger. Talk to me about the learnings along the way that perhaps that from your journey that you could, maybe 2 or 3 points that you could impart to somebody that's possibly going through a struggle at the moment, Because storms come and go.
No, they do. Storms pass, and having the faith in yourself is a massive thing. You have to believe in yourself and believe that you can come out the other side of things. I find exercise is immensely important.
Yeah.
Whether that's a walk, a run, lifting weights, going for a swim, whatever it is. Whether it's going, like, meditation was something I thought was hocus pocus, but a fella by the name of Stephen Dalton has introduced me to it.
Very good.
And it's unbelievable, like, it's mind changing. But my whole thing I think if I was to say one word that can get everybody better, it's faith. And that faith is in yourself.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I just believe that we're so quick to say how bad we are at things. We have to trust that we can get through things as well. And that's the thing with, unfortunately, like social media and all these jobs, they're toxic, they're poison. And I'm very conscious that I spend way too much time on it. But have faith in yourself to get out of these things. Do the things that make you happy. And we all have a why. And that's what's really important. I think that we all have a why. It's to look for that why, or to go in search of that why. Don't stop just because I tell you you're never going to do it. Why would you stop because of what I said? Someone's opinion of you has nothing got to do with you.
Yeah.
That's very hard, right? That's very hard to take. But if you're to think about it logically, and we don't, as humans, we don't think logically, right? But if you're to think about it logically, if you pick up a hot coal with the intention of burning someone else, you're the only person getting burnt. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that don't take things personally. I wish I was better at that. We have all survived every shit day we've had. That's a massive thing. Do you know what I mean? So faith is my biggest thing. Have faith in yourself. Every one of us, regardless of your situation, we all bring something to the world no one else can.
Yeah.
We're all far and too important, right? And we all have the opportunity to do amazing things. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that I just think, like, why let somebody else damage your dreams, thoughts? Like, if you're chasing it, you chase it.
Exactly.
You might not ever get to it.
Yeah.
But that's no one else's business. You're chasing it and enjoy the journey. Like, that's
no true word, I think.
Making mistakes is so important. But the really important thing about making mistakes is that we don't make the same mistakes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That we don't continue. Because if you're making the same mistakes, that's learned behaviour.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You have to be conscious of that.
Yeah. And I suppose really, the question that comes to mind now, Niall, is what's the future for you?
Oh.
Because I see the crest on your chest there is very much part of that.
It is at the moment.
Are you at peace?
My boxing journey ended far quicker than I wanted. I wasn't ready for it.
Sure.
Then, at 39 years of age and being a registered gobshite, I went back to playing hurling and I done my cruciate. So I wasn't ready for that. So now I'm officially not playing sport, which is hard because it's all I've done ever, and I miss it massively. I miss boxing massively because it challenged me every day. Am I at peace? I don't know, but I'm extremely happy. If you'd have told me at 24 years of age, after Colin, after the massive drop, after being brought to the doctor that I'd be here, I'd have a little boy who's a monster from 2 pounds to he's 28 kilos the other day at 6 years of age. He's a monster, and a beautiful wife who I trust, and she's really good at for me, a healthy family, that's all that matters. Do you know what I mean? And I think like there's some amazing young people in Wicklow and in Gorey, and I would love to think that, and I say it in every MBK I do, and I say it in every school talk I do, if there is anyone struggling, you can reach out to me on social media or whatever way you need to, or ring the station, leave a message, and for Basil, and there's not too many Basils, so I'll get back in contact with you. But I think the main thing everyone needs to know is that we all bring something to this world that nobody else can.
Yeah.
We're all unbelievably important, and we all have the opportunity to write our own story. Have faith in yourself to get through everything. that's a long waffle of that. But faith, genuinely, faith is the most important thing.
And I'm sure word said. Niall Basil Kennedy,
Yeah.
thank you for being our first No Ordinary Man.
So I apologise for wrecking our waffles.